Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to show you how to fix a car that's got a shaking steering wheel. Now, one of the most common reasons for a shaking steering wheel, you're driving down the road, you hit the brakes, and then the steering wheel starts shaking. Now, believe it or not, you can easily do it yourself by being logical and following all these steps. Numero uno is this: check all 4 tire pressures when the car's cold. If the tire pressures are off by quite a bit, you're going to get some shaking because it's uneven. They're not all exactly the same shape and pressure. Less pressure, they squash down more. They're not going to ride the same. It's a simple thing, but it's often overlooked. Check every single one, including both back ones. I don't know how many times I fixed somebody's car by finding out that there was a nail in a tire, one tire was lower than the others, or a valve stem was leaking, made it check. So always check that first. In this case, they're all 28 pounds, cold outside. Normally it should be about 30, but that's perfectly fine. That's not making it shake. Now the next thing to do is jack the car up in the air, but first, make sure the emergency brake's on so it doesn't roll, and that it's in park. Down to the car, find a solid spot. Up we go. And we'll keep pumping until the wheel's off the ground. They got a nice steel jack stand sticking under there so it doesn't crush anything. Then first grab the tire at 3 and 9 o'clock. See if there's play. There is no play. Then grab it at 12 and 6. There's no play there. So there's nothing that's really worn here. And of course, then do the same thing on the other side. Now, there is no wear on either side here, but I'm going to take off the wheel to explain what you're looking for. And off it goes. We'll move it to the side. Now, if this outer tie rod was worn, when you pulled on it here and here, it would have clunked, but it didn't. Following it further down, if the inner tie rod was worn, it would clunk in there. But it doesn't clunk there. Pulled up here and down here, and it clunked. That would either mean the ball joint down here was worn, or the strut mount up here was worn. But that's not the case on this side or the other side. And if you notice, these are kind of shiny. This rotor's shiny. Got a little rust on it because it's brand new and it rained. I recently changed the old rotors off because they were warped. When you're driving at a high speed, the wheels are spinning a lot. You hit the brakes squeeze the rotors. And if the rotors are warped, then the brake pads are going to go like this. Now, not that much, only a few thousandths of an inch. But that little bit of vibration there is then transferred up into the car, which then makes the steering wheel shake as you brake, because that vibration makes the steering wheel vibrate. Now, there's some very expensive tools you can buy to measure these, but I bought this thing for like 12 bucks at a hardware store, and it measures good enough for our purposes. We set this to measure how thick it is, and you make it so it's snug. So right here it's snug, but as we move it around, it gets real loose over here. That means it's thinner here than it is here where it's thick. If you want, you can buy a very expensive micrometer to measure it exactly and measure 10 or 15 different spots on it, but this is good enough. You know, it should all be the same thickness. And if you find some parts it's real loose and it'll clack back and forth, and others it's nice and snug, you know it's not the same width. And in this case, both sides were warped. Well, I blame this on cheap Chinese parts. These were sent to me by a Chinese company to try out, and guess what? They failed. These particular cheap Chinese ones, they didn't last 7,000 miles before they warped and made the steering wheel shake like mad when you hit the brakes. So I replaced them both. But you might wonder, what am I doing now? Well, it's still got a little shake to it. Not the brrr that it had before. But now, if you take your hand off the wheel going 25, 30, you can see it wobble back and forth a little. Here's something that I learned years ago from my father, who ran a Texaco gas station. Don't assume that a car only has one problem, because it can have various problems, and sometimes in the same system, where the steering wheel isn't going like this now, but it's still got a little wobble to it. So let's go to the next step. Tires that are warped and worn out will do it, but these are brand new Michelins. Not only here, but this is a new Michelin, this is a new Michelin, and this is a new Michelin too. So why is the steering wheel still got a little wobble to it? Well, let's use our heads. Sometimes rims can get bent. Let's check that out. Well, the right front rim is in good shape, but the left front, it's hit the curb here. And over here too. So it could be slightly bent, which often is going to show up at lower speeds. So let's put that tire that was on the left front on the left rear. But before we do that, let's check out the left rear. Aha! All right, it's whistle clean. There are no dings on this baby. So let's swap them. Move it on up here. Back on front and front on back. It's always best to put 2 on, then put the rest on. So you line it upright. Then you can put the other ones on in a cross pattern. And we'll put the lock nut one with the anti-theft last. Always spin them so they're on tight enough that they won't cross thread. Now you might say, Scotty, you're just moving the problem to the back. Since it's just a little wobble in the front steering wheel, and this is front wheel drive, the back just rolls, often you won't notice a tiny problem in the back. You can just move it to the back. Then we'll put the totally non-bent one with the new tire on the front. And before you do anything else, once you get it on, get your puzzle lock key, open the trunk. You don't want to lose this if you ever get a flat. Always put it back in the trunk with the rest of the tools. And speaking of remembering things, don't forget to get the jack stand out of the way. You don't want to crush everything and slam it down. Then you can gradually let it down by turning it. Slowly. Get it out of the way. So let's take it for a spin, see what it does now. And as we drive down the road, no more shaking steering wheel at lower speeds. Let's take it to a higher speed. And here we go. No shaking at all. Speed up a little bit more. No shaking. It's not pulling, it's not shaking. That fixed it. That was the second final fix. So it's fixed, but there's more than one lesson to be learned here. You learned how to check it out, but also realize you may have one symptom like a shaking steering wheel, but there could be more than one cause, and you have to check them all out until all the shaking is gone. And as the saying goes, if you want the job done right, do it yourself. Well, you can do it yourself now. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Well, here's an interesting bit of news. The FBI just raided Ducati North American headquarters. Ducati North America is headquartered in Mountain View, California. And on December 17th, the FBI raided it. They didn't say exactly what they were looking for, but they did say it has something to do with financial documents. Ooh, an Italian company and financial documents in California. What a surprise. There were 30 armed FBI agents who did the search. Now, there are only 2 employees there at the time, and then there was 3. They called up and somebody else showed up. And one of them said, I'd never been so scared in my life. They pointed guns at me. They also searched several high-level Ducati North American employees' houses, too. I guess they figured they're hiding some of the paperwork at home. Maybe they said, take that stuff home so nobody can find it. Now, the FBI said they couldn't confirm anything. There's an ongoing investigation. They can't comment further. And, of course, when people tried to ask Ducati what's going on, they didn't answer the phone. But here we go on with intrigue in the motoring industry. Ducati's gone bankrupt so many times, so many different companies buy them. It just amazes me. I guess they just figured they're pulling another fast one. The FBI decided, hey, let's see what these clowns are up to. Well, let's follow this future. I'm going to keep following it and see what they actually did raid them for and what they found. I'm sure it'll come out of the wash one of these days when they give their report out. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.